As seen in these very obviously opposite pictures, feminism isn't quite what it used to be. Well, what is feminism, do you ask, dear sir? Well, it was a term coined initially in the 1837 by the French philosopher Charles Fourier. And well, it originated because the women in society wanted equal rights as their fellow male counterparts. Now, what exactly are the rights we're talking about here? Women back then couldn't own property on their own, get equal or even any education the way men were able to, and basically a whole bunch of other stuff. And they realized that the primary right that they deserved and that which could help pave the path for them to get so many other rights in the near future as well was women's suffrage, the right to vote. And obviously, this was a great stride for humanity because, well, hello, just as there are men in this world, there are women too, and their voices deserve to be heard the same way a man's voice was heard back then. I'm sure you'd agree as well. I mean, unless you're an incel or something, in which case, get out of my channel. Soon enough came a lot of other great strides for feminism, or at least what was feminism then. The right to education, supported by respective laws in different countries, laws against gender discriminatory abortions, the right to own property, and so on. However, feminism looks quite different today. The funny thing is, even when feminism originated, I'm not even sure the feminists back then would agree with the viewpoints of feminists today. I had, past tense, proudly been calling myself a feminist for quite some time, with the idea of equal rights in mind, or better yet, let's use another term, gender equality. However, seeing some of the pure atrocities that some are associating with quote unquote feminism, I am constantly in a greater and greater horror. The trend now seems to be jumping on the bandwagon of playing the victim. I'm pretty sure that if you're cold at an office, no sane man would mind if you turned up the heat a bit. And also, since when do men not feel cold? They too typically wear a shirt and a suit in the office to keep warm in the cold office temperatures. Now, as scary as it is about to seem, this is not even the worst example. There are actual people out there claiming or believing that eating meat promotes toxic masculinity or whatever. The point that I'm perplexed about is how this person is a professor. God, the amount of loans parents and students take out to fund education by these self proclaimed knowledgeable people. Now that is truly a tragedy. And isn't this the same person who, 2 years later or something, came back and said that math is racist? Moving on. My problem isn't even with these specific issues or with the people involved in these issues, but rather the consequence of trivializing such a historically powerful term carrying deep rooted meanings. When they bring in feminism to trivial matters such as these, the meaning is taken away from the term, and those who end up suffering are the people who are in actual, desperate need of the movement. Notice how everyone making these claims about feminism and sexist air cons or meat are all from well developed first world nations, probably sitting well and safe in their comfortable homes, receiving all that they need, and jumping onto these liberal bandwagons to appear quote unquote educated as the 13-year-olds of Instagram preach today. How do you think women in actual poor countries with largely male dominated cultures or in countries with actual unfair regulations against women would feel looking at the things these so called feminists are complaining about? Whether it is the staggering high rates of domestic abuse in the Middle East or even the child marriages, which are still quite prevalent in some regions around the world. Isn't that where we should be bringing up the concept of feminism instead? Yeah, thought so. In most of these absurd cases where privileged people end up playing the victim, it's typically women who want to play the victim instead of being held responsible for their own individual doings. No, no, no. They'd rather point fingers at everything and everyone who is supposedly wrong. Some have taken it to the extreme of interpreting feminism as pushing women forward at the expense of men. By this, I mean the whole I hate men business, which has become quite popular over the past few years for some reason. This, I don't get at all. When people exclude men out of these discussions altogether and claim they've got male privilege and which makes them inherently toxic or whatever, what they're doing is just jumping onto another political bandwagon in a blind manner without even knowing what they're saying. I mean, don't we want to convince men to support and join us in achieving equality? Oh, wait, my bad. Never mind. That's not the feminism that we see today. And what's worse is when they excuse their personal failures due to their nature of being a woman and not a man. When they've literally lived in a developed first world country, got parents supporting their education and life choices, and can practically do just about anything a man can with their lives, but choose to use their woman card as an excuse for their poor life choices. I cannot begin to name the countless number of times I've heard this excuse be blabbered on when their career has stagnated or they've made a poor life choice. Oh, it's 'cause I'm a woman. Now, don't get me wrong, there is obviously some injustice in the world, but some are just selfish and want to nag like a baby. And for that, please don't use the term feminism. Let's leave that to the people who actually need it.